am getting dinner started. I technically should already have had dinner in the oven. The day's gotten away from me. I kind of have to do this dinner because I had everything thawed for it. I have plans for tomorrow's dinner that is also thawed. So I kind of just have to keep it going. Luckily for me, it's going to be somewhat of a late night for everyone anyhow. It's a Saturday, so if we're not eating dinner at 6:30 like we typically do, it's no big deal because no one's even going to be home until probably 7:30 at this point, closer to 8 even. I don't usually like eating that late, but every now and again, it's no big deal. I think Europeans do that. I think they tend to have a pretty late dinner, so we'll be European today. I actually my genetics happen to be 100% European, so we'll say that's the reason. I am crumbling up cheese right now. I am kind of using some odds and ends. So this cheese, I'll let you look at it. This was in my freezer. And you can see how like blocky it looks. It's because it was frozen, and when you freeze real cheese, I don't know if it's all cheese, but the raw cheese that I get from Azure, it just crumbles. You don't even need to shred it with a shredder, which is kind of nice. So it's just really quick to put together. This is a raw aged cheddar type of a cheese. This was about the only ingredient I really kind of overlooked was the cheese. So what am I making for dinner? We're going to be making stuffed shells. I have had such a taste for it. It's one of my favorites. I think if I had to list 5 favorites, this is on the list of one of those 5. I don't have mozzarella, and I also don't have any freeze-dried mozzarella, which is really sad. And so I kind of almost scratched it, but I thought, nope, I'm going to practice what I preach, and that's just use what you have. Use what you have, see what happens, see how it comes out. It may not be close to kind of what you're used to, but it still might be good. So that's what I'm going with today. So I've got, I believe they were 8-ounce blocks of cheese. So I've got 2 of those shredded here. I've got just a teeny little bit of this Colby Jack that needs to be used up. This was from the Super Bowl. I don't ever buy cheese like this, by the way, the pre-shredded bagged cheese, but it was left over from when we had a ton of people here for the Super Bowl. I'm gonna just get that used up, and then of course I have a couple different things of Parmesan cheese that we can use. So really the only thing is I don't have mozzarella. I do have it coming on my Azure order in just a couple of days though. All right, so first thing I'm going to do, I have already gotten my shells cooked. So these I cooked for, it was like 5 or 6 minutes. They're definitely not done, but they are soft enough now for me to fill. They're jumbo shells. They are not as big as I either remember them being, or there's an even bigger size after this is probably, I think, what it happens, because these aren't very big still, but that's fine. You know, we'll work with what we have. That's what I have on hand. So those have been cooked. They are drained and waiting for me. So now I'm going to get my sauce going so that can simmer while we're getting some of the other filling put together. So I'm going to get my stove top on. I'm going to get a little bit of olive oil here in my pot. I use pure olive oil for everything that if I say olive oil and it's going on heat, it's pure olive oil. I only use extra virgin olive oil for salad dressings, finishing oil, anything that doesn't touch heat. So in case you were wondering, it's just pure olive oil. Okay, I'm gonna start with some diced onion. I had about a half a bag of the onion that I've preserved in my freezer, so I'll throw that in there. While I'm waiting for that onion to saute, since it is frozen, it tends to have a lot of liquid in there, and I want that to kind of cook down a little bit. So because I'm kind of pressed for time, we'll get started with the cheese filling. I'm gonna do a ricotta cheese filling for some and meat filling for some others. I've had these in my freezer. These just come from Aldi. So my puppies are playing. My puppies tend to always want to make noise when I'm recording, and that's fine. They live here too, but that's what you'll be hearing in the background. Okay, so I've never frozen ricotta before. I did read that it freezes well, so we will see. And I decided to give this a try. Actually, I picked them up sometime before the Pantry Challenge started, because I knew there might be a time when I would want to make lasagna or stuffed shells, manicotti, something like that, and I would want ricotta cheese. So it's 6 days before the end of the Pantry Challenge, and we're giving it a try. All right, I'm using 2 containers. Looks good. Still a little frozen in this one part, but I think by the time we mix it around and stuff, it should be okay. Okay, I have my hen eggs here. So we have a hen who is injured, and so we keep her separate from the others because no matter how we tried to integrate her back, they pick on her. And she's just as sweet as can be. So we have her separated for right now. And, you know, we check on her daily, actually multiple times a day. We're out there with our hens, checking for eggs and feeding, watering. Everything's freezing cold right now, so they have to be watered several times throughout the day. She's in a more heated, controlled temperature environment, but my husband went, and he did this probably about 3 weeks ago, went and cleaned out her little house that she has, and went and did it again today and found a nest of eggs. She has not been laying. She's one of the older hens that we've got, and found a nest of her eggs. She lays these really pretty blue eggs. We washed them, we did the float test. We had 13 eggs. 2 of them floated and were not good anymore. So these ones are in my fridge and washed for me, ready to use. So we're gonna throw 2 eggs in here. Perfect. I named her Dumpling. So Dumpling is back to laying eggs. So we're averaging 9 to 10 eggs a day now. With the most we've gotten was a dozen. So that's exciting. I have freeze-dried, what is this? Spinach. Freeze-dried spinach that I'm going to put in here because I don't have fresh, I don't have frozen. I did contemplate using some of the canned spinach. We know I'm trying to find ways to use that, and I would have if I had more time, but that requires I drain it really well, and I don't have time for that today. So I'm just going to crush up some of this in here. I'm gonna put what feels like a little too much just because we know spinach tends to cook down. So get that put in there. I'm going to use the rest of this shredded cheese. Dump that in there. Gonna get some Parmesan cheese in here. Get some of this cheddar cheese in there as well. Little bit of salt. There's quite a bit of salt there in that cheese, so we don't really need a whole lot of that. And a little bit of pepper. Or a lot of pepper. I like pepper. We'll get this mixed around. I'm not going to add garlic to it. There'll be garlic in the pasta sauce that I'm making, so I'm going to leave it out. I also have these cheese cubes. I don't know if this is cheddar or if this is Monterey Jack, and if I were to try it, I honest to goodness don't know if I could tell you the difference between the two. Maybe if I knew one cube was one cube was another, I tasted it, then I would see the difference, but blindly on its own, not knowing, I don't know if I could tell you what it was. So I'm going to use that. Oh, how am I going to use that? My brain was thinking lasagna when I brought those out. I don't want to have to shred those up, so we'll see. I don't know yet. Okay, my filling is done for the cheese filling. Okay, this is perfect. All of the liquid has evaporated. I'm going to add, I've got just a little bit of this garlic here left. I can tell you, first and foremost, I am not purchasing such a big thing of garlic again after I use this up. And I likely will not buy this type of garlic anymore anyhow. I don't often use it. For the meat mixture, I am doing some sweet Italian sausage and just regular beef, ground beef, with some cheese, of course, mixed into it. But that'll be pretty simple and easy. I'm gonna start getting some of my cans opened up. I have these on my shelf, crushed tomato with basil. Figure, you know what, that is perfect for spaghetti sauce. So I'm gonna get those opened. I have my really my homegrown, everything but the onions that's in here, the peppers, the tomatoes. I don't remember what else is in here. But we stewed these together, and instead of it being like a stewed tomato or crushed, it's a sauce. So I've got 3 of those. There's lots of flavor in here. That was a good seal. Goodness. Wonderful. So that will add such good flavor. I've been using them every time I make my sauce here at home, and oh, it's wonderful. And then I have tomato paste. I'm going to use 2 jars. This tomato paste is actually quite thin. I get it from Azure. I get a couple cases at a time. I won't need to buy tomato paste for a little while still, but it's actually rather thin. It reminds me more of like a really thick tomato puree. When you buy those cans, the aluminum cans of tomato paste, now that stuff is thick. So I'm using 2 of these. And then I have spaghetti seasoning that I get from Azure, and I just throw in some of this, and my spaghetti sauce is amazing every single time. The summertime, I like to add in my fresh herbs that, of course, I'm growing out in the garden. But it's February, so that's not happening today. Lasagna, stuffed shells, manicotti, stuff like that tends to take a lot more sauce than if you were just making regular spaghetti. You can see me now. Stewed tomato sauce. Now my husband is Italian, and he remembers his grandma. She was also a caterer, and so she just had stuff going on the stove all the time, he said. And when she made her sauce, of course it would sit and simmer for a while on the stovetop, but she would put cubed, I don't know how many, of course, in the size pot she had. I don't know the ratio and how many she put, but she would put cubed potatoes in there. And the starch, I'm sure, is probably to help cut some of the acid in her tomato sauce. And so he always enjoyed coming over and being able to eat the potatoes out of there when it was all said and done. So I'm going to let this simmer while we get our meat put together. I'm not going to add Parmesan cheese to this like I sometimes do for just a regular spaghetti sauce because there'll be enough of it in other parts of this dish. So I'm going to put the lid on this, have it on a slow simmer, and let's get our meat together. I can tell you I'm going to have too much filling for both compared to the amount of noodles that I have. So I'm kind of deciding right now in my head if I want to freeze the filling for later, or do I want to, while my dinner's in the oven, I can cook more noodles and then just have an entire meal in my freezer? I don't know. I haven't decided. I guess I'll wait and see. That's what I'll do. How about I wait and see how much I have left? I'm only using half of the one. It was a 2-pound package. My beef comes in 2 pounds, and so I'm just going to use 1 pound since the sausage I have is 1 pound. Just so I do want it a little bit more heavy on my Italian sausage flavors coming through. So let's see, what else do I need? Do I put an egg in this? I don't remember. Gosh, it's been so long since I've made it. Do I put an egg in here? I don't think it'll hurt. We're on the last bit of basil leaves that I have in the cabinet. I have my pan oiled, so hopefully nothing really sticks too much. I'm gonna get a little bit of sauce down here. Typically I let my sauce simmer for a little bit longer than what it is, but since it's gonna finish off in the oven, I'm not worried about it. I did taste it. I did have to add a little bit of salt, and that really helped to sort of pull all of the flavors together. All right, so we've got that done, and now we're just going to fill our shells and get them into the pan. So I'm gonna get those filled. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do every other. So I'll do a meat and then a cheese, meat, then cheese. I do have, well, yeah, I've got 2 kids who really don't want the cheese-filled kind, and that's fine. They don't have to eat it, but I like how when I put them next to each other, that sausage juice and everything as it cooks, I feel like it just really flavors its neighbor a little bit, if you will. I don't know. It's just the way I've always done it, so who knows. Okay, so I've got one tray done, and because I've got some leftover noodles, I'm going to get a different tray and do another one. I think before I do that though, I'm going to finish out this one and at least get it into the oven to get started. So I'm going to cover my shells with the sauce. I've got some Parmesan cheese over the top of it. I'm gonna get it in the oven like this for probably about a half an hour. Then I will put the cheese over top of it and kind of let it broil for a few minutes. I don't like adding cheese right away because you're waiting for everything to cook, especially when we have raw meat. And I don't like covering things with tin foil that has a cheese top because inevitably you're going to lose some of that cheese. So I just wait. I will put it in the oven now, let it cook for about a half hour, bring it out, test the meat and see how it's looking, and then I'll go ahead and add the cheese, put it back in for maybe another 20 minutes. And then if I have to broil a little bit at the end, I will. So it's going to cook for about almost an hour. I would say 40 minutes, 45 minutes should be fine. And that's one tray. Okay, because the sauce is a little cool, or a little warm, I should say, I'm gonna let this cool down some more. I'm going to wrap it with plastic wrap, and then I will wrap it with tin foil. And on the tin foil, I'm going to put, of course, what it is, but I'm going to put on there that it needs topped with cheese. This way, this batch will have the appropriate cheese to go along with it. And then I will get it into my freezer. I've got manicotti noodles here. I've got my instant rice. So I'm gonna go ahead and add some here to my meat mixture. Actually, oh yes, it is. Okay, I was just thinking like, oh no, you add raw rice to the manicotti, but no, the way I was shown how to make it anyhow, I had always pre-cooked the rice. So yes, I'm going to add my instant rice into here. Between the meat, juices from the meat, and of course the pasta sauce, it'll cook up just fine. will hydrate. It's already been cooked. And it's filled just like that. Oh, I gotta get sauce on the bottom here. I'm using one of these trays since it's gonna go in my freezer. I don't want to use up all of my glass pans and not have any for everyday type of cooking. I do the same thing with my lasagna noodles. I do not pre-cook my lasagna noodles. I let the sauce cook the noodles. You do need to make sure you have extra sauce though. So, you know, don't go light and skimp on the sauce by any means, because that's what's gonna cook your noodles. And there is really no difference to me or anybody who's ever eaten it that way, and I've served many lasagnas to many crowds the last several years. I've been doing it that way and no one's ever said anything. No one's ever noticed when I asked them. Just saves time, saves an extra unnecessary step. And you don't have to worry about noodles becoming overcooked, in my opinion. Why cook them twice, you know? I am actually really glad that it worked out this way, because these style dishes make a mess in the kitchen. I've got bowls and pots to clean. Oh my gosh, it is an absolute chaotic mess in my kitchen right now. And so the next time I want to have manicotti or stuffed shells, I can have it without the mess. So it's kind of nice. As I always say, you might as well cook once and eat twice. And although that wasn't necessarily my plan today, I'm not surprised by any means that I have more filling left over than, you know, noodle ratio, but I get 2 dishes out of it. Okay, so this I will wrap with plastic, tin foil. I'll write manicotti over the top of it. I'll put how long it needs to cook. And then I will make a notation to add cheese over the top of it as well. Here it is out of the oven. Looks fantastic, smells delicious. So we made stuffed shells today. I showed you how I used frozen ricotta, worked out fantastic. I used my dehydrated, I actually don't know if it was my dehydrated or freeze-dried spinach, but doesn't matter, it's semi the same. I used that. We used the leftover cheese and meat and made 2 freezer meals for a later time. I showed you how I used my dehydrated rice to quickly whip that together. That was fantastic because I was not looking to cook rice tonight, I could tell you that much. We used what we had on hand in terms of the cheese. I am certain it's going to taste just fine. Do I prefer mozzarella? Yes, it probably melts a little bit better. More stringy maybe. Flavor-wise might be a tad bit different. I don't know. I'll let you know once I taste it though. And we made homemade sauce, and I pulled a ton of jars and cans from the pantry shelf, which I also really love. So we managed to use a lot of various different pantry and freezer preservation methods here for dinner tonight, and that's really exciting. I took this loaf of bread from the freezer. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it, quite honestly. It isn't very soft like my French bread usually is. This is one of the goofs. I messed up making this French bread, but as I always say, bread can never go to waste. There are so many things you can do with it. So I think what I'm gonna do is we're going to sort of break it up, cut it apart, and we're just gonna dip it in some olive oil with some seasoning. Instead of making a garlic bread like I was maybe thinking I would, I think it would be easier just to eat it that way. Any leftovers I have, I will probably turn it into breadcrumbs. So that is dinner tonight. Thank you for coming along with me. I hope I gave you some inspiration on how you can still throw together a wonderful meal using the things that you have on hand, whether you're in a pantry challenge or not. Sometimes we have so much going on that we find we forget an ingredient or two, and we find that we have to sort of just make it work, and we did. So thank you so much for coming along. Check out my haul that's going to be coming up, and I do believe I'll be sharing one more dinner with you in the interim time. So take care. I'll see you in my kitchen very soon.